Hey, welcome to this little series that I'm doing about the photo, where I basically just find photos that I like, either that I've taken or that a student of mine has taken or a photographer friend, and I talk about them. Whenever I find a photo that I really like, I stop and I admire it and I enjoy it, and then I start to break it down and I say, what are the interesting elements of this photo? Like, what is it that I think I like about this photo? What sort of creative elements and whatnot are working for this photo? Okay, so just to pause for a second, I have to explain some of the background noise that you may be hearing. So it's been a long week for me and kind of a crazy week. My wife and I had a baby this week. Not our first, but there were some circumstances that made it really tough. And it's been hard for me to work this week. And so my whole family is now in bed, and I'm sitting outside. I've got a little campfire going, and so you may hear some crackling. And we live not too far away from a runway, and so you can hear some planes in the background. So, so that's the story, that's the context. And now this killer whale photo. So this is Kiska, killer whale, an orca at Marineland in Canada. And so I grew up going to Marineland and Niagara Falls, and really it was kind of my favorite place in the world. And I don't know why. I mean, who knows? You just kind of like things as a kid, and then they stick with you for the rest of your life. And so I had this idea one day not long ago that I really wanted to go back to Marineland because it had probably been, I don't know, 20 years or something since I'd been. And I thought, I want to go back, and if they still have a killer whale, I want to photograph this whale. I want to make portraits. And I thought, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't know where this whale is going to be exactly. I don't know what's going to work, but let's just go and see what happens. And so I spent about 3 hours underground in the aquarium photographing Kiska. And this is one of my favorite photos, and it is my daughter's favorite photo. So I decided this is going to be the shot. I didn't tell her that I wanted her to pick the shot, but I let her look through the photos, and she was really excited and decided this was her favorite photo and asked me to print it and frame it for her. So I thought, okay, let's talk about this and see. So the first thing you can see is that I put this photo in black and white. And I had decided that these were going to be black and white portraits before I set out. I don't know why, it just occurred to me these are going to be black and white. And I don't know, I think portraits and black and white for me kind of go hand in hand. I like color portraits, but I don't know. I think it's black and white for me. I think the portraits I love most tend to be black and white. And so I knew I set out knowing that that's the way that this is going to be. I did photograph, I did take all these portraits in color and then converted to black and white afterwards, because if you shoot in black and white, then you've got a black and white photo and you cannot get the color. If you shoot in color, you can always convert it to black and white. Of course, for those of you who understand raw images, you know that you could shoot in black and white and still have the color. Um, Anyways, so that was my decision. I knew that these were going to be black and white portraits. And in this particular shot, basically what I did is I went really wide angle, and I got really close to the glass of the aquarium. And it's because I know in my mind there's kind of a formula when you want kind of an up close and in your face kind of intimate sort of feel for your portrait. You go a little more wide angle, and then you get really close to your subject. And I think that's what gives this photo its kind of like in your face, or like you're right there kind of feel to it. So we got the black and white. We've got the up close and wide angle, and then what else? So I went for a little bit lower angle because I wanted to give this whale its. I find a lower angle gives a sort of somewhat dramatic, larger than life kind of feel to a photo. And so I thought at least a slight bit lower angle would definitely um, increase the impact of this photo. I notice, I mean, basically the face of the whale is sharp, but if you look back at the tail and the fin on the upper part of the whale back here, not quite in focus. And so here's what I'm not sure about. I'm not sure if it's that it's not in focus or if that there might actually be a little bit of motion blur. And it could kind of be both because the whale may have just been, moving the lower end of its body kind of rapidly, and I was at a slightly slower shutter speed. So, but I like that bit of blur. I like the fact, that the front half of the whale or so is nice and crisp, and then the back is just a little bit blurry. It kind of keeps our focus on the whale. But you've probably noticed by now that there are all kinds of handprints on the glass. And, if I wanted a pure photo, I would be pretty disappointed in the fact that we've got all of those handprints. And I could use Photoshop, I could even use Lightroom probably to clean up a lot of those spots, but I kind of like them. They are one of the imperfections that I love to discover in my photos. One of those things in the moment where this just is not going to go exactly right and perfect. There's going to be some kind of flaw in the photo, and I'm okay embracing that. So sometimes in my photos that might be some motion blur, it may be a little bit out of focus. In this case it's these disgusting handprints all over the glass, and what I love about them is that it kind of brings in the human connection. It kind of brings in all kinds of positive and negative connections between us and the whale. So first of all, if you couldn't tell already, you now know that I'm not in the water with the whale, that there's something separating the whale and I, and it's an aquarium and it's glass. And so there is that what's the word I want, well, whatever it is, there is something separating us. There is something between us. And that's the thing about a portrait, is you kind of want it to be as intimate and real and raw as possible. At least I do. And so on the one hand, I can't have that because I can't get in the water with this whale. And honestly, I don't even know if it's safe to swim with orcas exactly. So, and given my qualifications, I may never be in the water with whales. Or so on the one hand, this is the only way I'm going to be able to do it. This is the only way I'm actually going to be able to make these portraits. And so there is something between us, and it's unfortunate. This portrait isn't quite as real and raw as I would want it to be, um, and so that's a little bit negative, I guess. But it's not like that's what I was going for anyways. Um, but the other thought here is that there's all these greasy paw prints all over the windows, and it's basically been kids all day long filing in and out and kind of pawing at this whale and then going on their way. And so it's kind of sad in a way, right? Because this whale is captive, and there's just all these paw prints on the glass. We're looking in at the whale, maybe kind of wishing that there wasn't this glass between us, and maybe the whale is looking through and wishing that there wasn't the glass between us as well. On the other hand, I saw a lot of really playful behavior between this whale and its trainers. And so, I always, sometimes I feel a little bit bad for animals in captivity. And sometimes I think, like, especially when an animal has been rescued, a life in captivity, so to speak, with humans that love it and that care for it and that interact with it is not necessarily always a sad story, right? I mean, if it's a rescue story, then it's a wonderful kind of story. But anyways, those greasy, grubby fingerprints are meaningful to me. in this photo, and I don't know, I could probably get a little deeper and more symbolic about them, and maybe I will in the future. But there's what kind of made this a strong photo to me, was the black and white portrait nature of this, the wider angle and up close, which gives you a more intimate feel, the slightly lower angle that adds some drama, and then those fingerprints on the glass between us.